how do you think online journalism is affecting corporate communication? So, I mean, what is the role of companies beyond the media industries in the development of online journalism? It's complicated, maybe. my voice is low. I can repeat. So, how do you think online journalism is affecting corporate communication beyond the media industries? Yes.
So in what sense?
I mean,
Between companies?
I mean, even pharmaceutical companies, financial companies.
You mean public relations?
All companies are are using social media, blogs to communicate nowadays. So yeah, I would like to get your opinion about this.
It's not something I know a vast amount about. I don't claim to be an expert. It's certainly true that lots and lots of companies are engaging using social media. And in a sense that can bypass the journalists, because they can get straight to the consumers themselves, which I think they quite like. Interestingly, I was actually speaking to some charities earlier on in the week, and it's slightly different for corporate, but it's still an organisation trying to get its message out. And they found mostly that using social media has enhanced what they've done through their core press team. They're not at the moment just using social media. It's very much supported by the role of newspapers and of professional journalists, I guess. Primarily because the reach of those publications is so much greater in most cases. That's probably changing slightly. There's certainly networks around communities and customer services, and they're excellent. I think where it really comes into its own is customer support around kind of niche products, and maybe that's because the people running those products are slightly more technically minded and are sort of willing to try new things. But to me, they seem to be the companies that are doing really well. So people like TweetDeck who run advice, and if you can't do something, you can at them and they can reply, and that works really well. But then their product is in that field, so I think it's very difficult for big companies to relax about opening their brand up to other people. And in a sense, that's exactly the same as media companies have that anxiety. If you're going to put a whole load of reader blogs underneath the Telegraph banner, that's quite a scary thing to do for some journalists, and in fact most other newspapers haven't done that, so I think that's quite telling. They still have to kind of open their doors and just said come and blog. My feeling is that as long as you're transparent about what's done by who, you know that this is a blog by a journalist, this is an article by an expert in the field, maybe this is a news story, this is from the wires, this is by our community, and not just our community in general, but this is by this guy who lives in China, and here are all his other blogs. Then you're being quite transparent about what you do, and I think that's exactly the same for corporates. As long as they're clear about who they are and about what their agenda is, I think that mostly the community in general, the wider online community, is quite accepting of that and quite positive about it. But it is a tricky balance. I hope that answers your question.
We were kind of talking earlier about how we were talking about the characteristics of communities generally and what makes a community, and one of the things that came up was this idea of shared values and rules and laws, and we were saying how the problem that comes up when media organisations, and it's obviously true for corporate companies as well, when they try to engage with online communities, the clash of values, and there are certain. And thinking about, you've obviously got the journalistic community has certain values, and there's different journalistic communities. Obviously, the kind of broadsheet journalistic community, the broadcast one, that's the tabloid one, have all got quite different values in some senses. So when that meets social media and a particular online community, they have to kind of either adopt that community's values or find some way to negotiate that.
I think how you structure it is really crucial, because we found not only do you get that problem with how different people joining the community itself can fragment down into very specific areas. So the readers of gardening, and we've got one guy who writes about beekeeping, the readers who comment on his blog, and they're quite engaged and they comment quite a lot, are really knowledgeable and very gentle and very sort of giving with their knowledge. It's completely different to the readers of politics blogs, who are generally quite aggressive, or the readers of football blogs, where it's sort of banterous, but it's a different kind of humour to the humour on political blogs. And one of the sort of challenges for My Telegraph, I guess, is at the moment it's a community where as I was saying, all the content goes through this front page. That means everything's kind of lumped together, and if you're interested in gardening, it's quite hard to find the other gardening readers, or people who might be much more interested in the kind of conversation you want to have. And equally, other readers who have a very strong grasp on that community, like the politics readers, we have quite a lot of strong political blogs, and that's transferred across into the community. We have a lot of My Telegraph readers who are blogging themselves about politics. They've got quite a stranglehold on that community, because if somebody blogs about gardening, they leave a comment going, oh, why are you talking about roses? I want to talk about, David Cameron speaking today. Do you really not have something more important to say? And that sort of kills the conversation. And essentially, that's a clash between people, and you get that at a dinner party or in a pub. It's exactly the same sort of tension. If everybody in the pub is watching football and somebody comes in and says, oh, I want to talk about gardening, they'll probably not go down too well. So the challenge is then, how do you structure the site for us? How do we reshape the site a little bit so that those readers can find each other and those communities can develop their own expectations? And it's happened in a more sophisticated way on the blogs, because we've now broken them down into channel. So news blogs are all together, sports blogs are all within sport. That's helped quite a lot. And also, because the blog is so closely associated with one journalist, you find they can gather readers around them and they can form their own rules. My photo community tends to be quite encouraging, I think, if anything creative like that, if you just have people attacking each other's work all the time and say, oh, your photo is rubbish, that wouldn't really lead to a very strong community. It's not a subject that really lends itself to particularly banterous engagement. But if you're blogging about politics, that might be quite different, and as long as everybody knows the rules and everyone's kind of okay with that, that's fine. I don't think there's kind of one way to do it. But when you try and mix lots of different ways up in a big pot, it can get quite feisty.